Here in Lisbon, we start at 9 a.m. sharp, which means 8:45 be here, and we go till 10:30 with the lecture. Every single day there's a 90-minute lecture. And then after the 90-minute lecture, from 10:30, did I say 10:30? From 10:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon, you're working on challenges. So every day there are about 5 to 10 challenges that you need to complete in pairs. Every day you have a new buddy, and you're paired programming. Some days you'll get through all the challenges, other days you won't. Some days you'll love it, other days you'll want to throw your computer against the wall. So that's the emotional roller coaster that's learning to code, or that's le wagon. But that's when you're really learning. So that's really the bread and butter of this boot camp, is fully immersing yourself in those challenges and getting stuck and having your buddy there to help you, right? And then if you and your buddy can't figure it out together, you make a ticket and call one of the TAs or the lead teacher over. Okay, so that's the middle of the day. Those are the challenges. And then at 5:30, there's live code. So the students and your classmates, you get back together and you're coding a solution. Either maybe you might get up to code, or one of your classmates will get up to code, but together you're solving the solution. So the full day is from 9 to 7, which is pretty intense. By the end of the day, you're going to feel totally fried. We recommend for students to take a break for the evening, go home, don't code. You can go over the flashcards, you can review the lectures for the next day, but really try to take a break and let the information sink in. So this is the disclaimer I like to share with all the students, especially students that join us that don't have any background in coding or math or engineering or even music for that matter. So like the social science students, kind of like myself, that studied business and I haven't taken math since I was 14. So the first 3 weeks of our boot camp, of Le Wagon's boot camp, is really intense, and partly because back-end programming, coding logic is really, it's quite abstract for those of us that haven't been working in that area. So the disclaimer is we need students that have the fighting spirit, the good attitude, where they can stick with it and they can sit well with uncertainty, because you're going to spend the first week and a half, 2 weeks not understanding, and you need to have the confidence in yourself and the motivation to keep on going and to be persistent, because you will have those clicks. But it's a matter of moving through the material and not putting up a mental block. So we really need students with a good attitude. Yes, there's some cognitive ability there, some brain power, but more than anything, in my personal experience and what I've seen, we need students that have the right attitude and are wanting to fight for it, and they really want to learn. Learning to code is a lot like riding a bike or learning a spoken language, especially in this type of setting. You don't have the luxury of understanding everything, okay? So if you want to learn how to ride a bike, for instance, you can't watch YouTube videos on how to ride a bike. You actually need to get on the bike and ride it and fall over. Get back on it and fall over. Get back on it and fall over. To learn a new language, you can take all the classes you want. Me, for instance, I've taken all the Portuguese classes in the world, but to actually learn Portuguese, to actually learn the language, you have to speak. You have to make mistakes. You have to embarrass yourself, and that's the same with coding. The students that I've seen that have gone through this program that are scared to code, right? They want to understand everything before they start. They have a really difficult time learning, because with code you have to just throw yourself at it and break things and fix it and break it again, and be fearless with your code, just like riding a bike, just like learning a new language. So yeah, that's the mindset you need here. Now I'm going to go over the 9 weeks with you and break it up week by week, starting with week 1. So week 1 is Ruby and coding basics. So you're going to be learning the fundamental concepts shared by all programming languages. variables, methods, loops, conditional statements, iterators, regular expressions. Hopefully some of this you will recognize in the Ruby track on Code Academy. And you're going to be working on cool challenges with your buddies. So in practicing real life examples like playing with APIs, scraping HTML, storing in CSV files, etc., etc., etc. And then the next week, you actually move into OOP, so object-oriented programming. Again, you're going to be going over this in the Ruby track if you haven't already finished it. So, in the last week, you learned how to build smart little programs in Ruby. That's great. But if you want to build more advanced software like a restaurant booking platform or a car rental system or a social network, you can't do that writing 1,000 lines of Ruby code in one file. So you need to break that up into different files, and this is what structuring a program is, software architecture. So in the second week, you're actually going to be building different software using object-oriented programming. So you'll be building your first MVC applications. And that's probably one of the most important modules of the program. So if you can embrace it, then Rails will be easy as pie. And then in the third week, you will be moving on to databases. So by this stage, you're already, a software engineer. You know how to build. You know how to structure software and write smart algorithms. But you need to store the data, right? So you can build amazing software, but if you lack persistence and can't store data, then you do nothing. So in the third week, you'll start talking about relational databases, learning how to ask information from the database using SQL queries, and then you'll move on to active record. So in the third week of the back end, you're going to be working with databases. Around this time, you can usually take a breath and breathe after the first few weeks. So you need an interface. So this is where front end comes into play. So in the next 2 weeks, so week 4 and week 5, you'll be working with HTML, CSS libraries like Bootstrap, and JavaScript. Again, it's a little bit, you can usually breathe a little bit more here. It's more visual, more creative. So really fun. After the 2 weeks of front end, so you're going into week 7, move into Rails. So during the Rails month, the last 4 weeks, you have an introduction to Rails. And you're still working on challenges like you were in the first 6 weeks of the program. And then after the introduction to Rails, week 1, you go on to Airbnb. So you're building Airbnb in teams. Right? Building Airbnb from scratch in teams to kind of get you warmed up before you start on your products in the last 2 weeks. So you're learning how to design, code, and deploy a product in just a week. After that, you scratch the Airbnb app, and you move on to your product. And this is really the moment of truth. This is when you're going to code your own projects and build something awesome. So yeah. And it all ends on the last day of a demo day where you're demoing your products to Livagon's community of friends, family, and fools here in Lisbon. We want you to aim to get the Ruby track done in Code Academy in under 10 hours. And it's not to say that after the 10 hours you're going to feel like you know everything. You might still have a lot of uncertainties, and that's normal, but we say 9 to 10 hours because it shows that you can keep pace with our course. The 9 weeks is really intense, and you have a lot of information being thrown at you, and you don't have time to always to digest everything. And so we've seen that if students and applicants can get the Ruby track on Code Academy done in under 10 hours, that they're able to move through information without necessarily having to understand everything. And that's what you have to be able to do in Livable. Regarding the products, so in the middle of the boot camp, during the front end modules, you're actually going to have the chance to pitch your product idea to your classmates. So not everyone has a product idea, and not every product gets built, right? So in the middle of the boot camp, you pitch your product idea to your classmates. Everyone votes, and you form teams of 3 to 4, no more, no less. These are the teams that you're going to be working on the last 3 weeks of the boot camp for Airbnb week and for obviously the product weeks. In my personal opinion, I think it's important more than anything to work with people that you enjoy and work on a project that you find challenging, that has a technical challenge that's interesting for you. And then after the boot camp, if you want to go on, you can go on to prototype all the ideas you have. What's more important is to really learn as much as you can in those last few weeks of the boot camp.